Are you ready to land your dream job as a React.js developer? Or will a tricky question about the virtual DOM or useEffect cleanup functions hold you back? In this video, we will cover React.js developer interview questions and answers comprehensive guide. Master your next React.js interview with this comprehensive guide. We cover 30 high-frequency interview questions that actual hiring managers ask. In this video, we dive deep into 30 essential React.js interview questions that cover everything from basic component lifecycle to advanced state management and performance optimization. Make sure to pause the video after each question to test your knowledge before we reveal the detailed answer. What is the primary purpose of the virtual DOM in React? Option A. To create a direct copy of the HTML DOM for backup purposes. Option B. To improve performance by minimizing direct manipulation of the browser's DOM. Option C. To allow React to run directly on the server without a browser. Option D. To provide a way to bypass CSS styling in components. The correct answer is B. The virtual DOM is a lightweight, in-memory representation of the real DOM. When the state of an object changes, React updates the virtual DOM first. It then compares the new virtual DOM with a snapshot taken before the update, a process called diffing. By calculating the minimal number of changes needed, React only updates the specific parts of the real DOM that changed, which is significantly faster than re-rendering the entire page UI. Which of the following is true about JSX? Option A. Browsers can read JSX directly without any transpilation. Option B. JSX is a mandatory requirement for writing React applications. Option C. JSX is a syntax extension for JavaScript that looks similar to XML, HTML. Option D. JSX replaces the need for JavaScript functions in components. The correct answer is C. JSX stands for JavaScript XML. It allows developers to write HTML-like structures in the same file as JavaScript code. Under the hood, tools like Babel transpile JSX into React, create element calls. While you can write React without JSX, it is the industry standard because it makes the code more readable and easier to debug. What is the correct way to update a state variable named count using the useState hook? Option A. Count equals count plus 1. Option B. This state count equals count plus 1. Option C. Set count plus 1. Option D. Update count plus 1. The correct answer is C. The useState hook returns an array with two elements, the current state value and a setter function. You must use the setter function, conventionally named set variable name, to update the state, directly mutating the variable, like count equals count plus 1, will not trigger a re-render of the component, meaning the UI will not reflect the change. When does the useEffect hook run if the dependency array is empty? Option A. After every render. Option B. Only once, after the initial render. Mounting. Option C. Every time the component updates. Option D. Only when the component is about to unmount. The correct answer is B. The dependency array in useEffect controls when the effect runs. If the array is empty, React interprets this as having no dependencies on props or state, so it only executes the effect function once after the first render. This is equivalent to the component didMount lifecycle method in class components. How are props passed into a child component? Option A. As arguments to the function component. Option B. Through a global props variable. Option C. By using the inject keyword. Option D. By setting them in the child's local state. The correct answer is A. In functional components, props, short for properties, are passed as the first argument to the function. This argument is an object containing all attributes passed from the parent component. Props are read-only, immutable, from the perspective of the child component, ensuring a one-way data flow. What is the lifting state up pattern used for in React? Option A. To move state to a global Redux store. Option B. To share state between sibling components by moving it to their closest common ancestor. Option C. To improve the performance of a single component. Option D. To convert a functional component into a class component. The correct answer is B. Often, several components need to reflect the same changing data. React recommends lifting the state up to their closest common ancestor. The ancestor becomes the source of truth, and it passes the state down to the children via props, along with functions to update that state. Why is it important to use key props when rendering a list of elements? Option A. To apply unique CSS styles to each list item. Option B. To help React identify which items have changed, been added, or removed for efficient re-rendering. Option C. To ensure that the list items are sorted alphabetically. Option D. Keys are required by the browser to render less than li greater than tags correctly. The correct answer is B. Keys help React identify which items in a list are stable across renders. When a list changes, React uses the keys to match the original tree elements with the new ones. Using stable, unique identifiers, like IDs from a database, as keys prevents bugs in component state and improves performance by avoiding unnecessary re-renders of the entire list. What is the primary difference between useMemo and useCallback? Option A. useMemo returns a memoized value, while useCallback returns a memoized function. Option B. useMemo is for class components, while useCallback is for functional components. Option C. useMemo is used for side effects, while useCallback is for state updates. Option D. There is no difference. They are aliases for the same function. The correct answer is A. Both hooks are used for optimization. useMemo executes a function and remembers the result, the value, between renders, only recalculating if dependencies change. useCallback remembers the function definition itself, which is useful when passing functions to optimized child components that rely on reference equality to prevent unnecessary re-renders. Via React Memo. What is a higher-order component, HOC, in React? Option A. A component that has a higher priority in the rendering cycle. Option B. A function that takes a component and returns a new component. Option C. A component that contains only HTML tags. Option D. A tool used for debugging component hierarchies. The correct answer is B. A higher-order component is a pattern derived from React's compositional nature. It is not a feature in the React API per se, but a technique. An hawk is a function that accepts a component as an argument and returns an augmented version of that component, often used for cross-cutting concerns like authentication, logging, or data fetching. How can you perform cleanup, e.g., removing an event listener, in a functional component using hooks? Option A. By using the useCleanup hook. Option B. By calling a function inside the component body. Option C. By returning a function from the useEffect hook. Option D. By using the component will unmount method inside the function. The correct answer is C. The useEffect hook allows you to return a cleanup function. React will call this cleanup function when the component unmounts or before rerunning the effect, due to a dependency change. This is the standard way to handle subscriptions, timers, or event listeners to prevent memory leaks. What does the useContext hook provide? Option A. A way to directly access the browser's window object. Option B. A way to consume values from a React context without wrapping in a consumer component. Option C. A method to update the state of a parent component from a child. Option D. A built-in replacement for the Redux store in all applications. The correct answer is B. useContext allows a functional component to subscribe to a React context. This avoids prop drilling, passing props through many layers of components. You pass the context object, created via React, create context, to the hook, and it returns the current value of that context as provided by the nearest provider above in the tree. When should you use the useRef hook? Option A. To trigger a re-render when a value changes. Option B. To store a mutable value that does not cause a re-render when updated. Or to access a DOM element. Option C. To fetch data from an external API. Option D. To define the styles of a component dynamically. The correct answer is B. useRef returns a mutable ref object whose current property is persisted for the full lifetime of the component. It is commonly used to access DOM elements directly, e.g., focusing an input, or to store values that should persist between renders but shouldn't trigger a visual update when they change. What is the data flow in React? Option A. Bidirectional, two-way data binding. Option B. Unidirectional, one-way data flow. Option C. Circular. Option D. Bottom-up only. The correct answer is B. React follows a unidirectional data flow. This means data has one, and only one, way to be transferred to other parts of the application, from parent to child via props. This makes the application more predictable and easier to debug because the source of data is always clear. What is React Memo used for? Option A. To store component data in local storage. Option B. To prevent a functional component from re-rendering if its props haven't changed. Option C. To create a backup of the component's state. Option D. To automatically optimize all functions in a file. The correct answer is B. React Memo is a higher-order component. If your component renders the same result given the same props, you can wrap it in React Memo for a performance boost. React will skip rendering the component and reuse the last rendered result if the props are shallowly equal. In useReducer, what is a reducer? Option A. A function that reduces the size of the bundle. Option B. A function that determines the next state based on the current state and an action. Option C. A method to delete state variables. Option D. A hook used to minimize the number of renders. The correct answer is B. A reducer is a pure function that takes the current state and an action object, then returns a new state. This pattern is borrowed from Redux and is useful for managing complex state logic that involves multiple subvalues or when the next state depends on the previous one. Which hook is equivalent to component did update? Option A. useState. Option B. useEffect with a dependency array containing the monitored values. Option C. useLayoutEffect with an empty array. Option D. useRef. The correct answer is B. To mimic component did update, you use useEffect and pass specific variables into the dependency array. The effect will run after the initial mount and every time any of the specified variables change. What is a controlled component in React? Option A. A component that handles its own state internally without props. Option B. An input element whose value is controlled by the React state. Option C. A component that is managed by a higher-order component. Option D. A component that cannot be modified by the user. The correct answer is B. In a controlled component, form data is handled by a React component state. The input's value is tied to a state variable, and an onChange handler updates that state. This ensures that the React state is the single source of truth for the form inputs. What is portals in React used for? Option A. To navigate between different routes in an application. Option B. To render a child component into a DOM node that exists outside the hierarchy of the parent component. Option C. To fetch data from a different domain. Option D. To speed up the rendering of large lists. The correct answer is B. Portals. Created via React DOM, create portal. Provide a way to render children into a DOM node that exists outside the DOM hierarchy of the parent component. This is extremely useful for UI elements like modals, tooltips, or floating menus that need to break out of a container with overflow, hidden, or a specific z-index. What is the purpose of the useLayoutEffect hook? Option A. It is exactly the same as useEffect. Option B. It runs synchronously after all DOM mutations but before the browser has a chance to paint. Option C. It is used to manage the layout of CSS in JS libraries. Option D. It runs only on the server side. The correct answer is B. useLayoutEffect has the same signature as useEffect, but it fires synchronously after all DOM mutations. Use this to read layout from the DOM and synchronously re-render, e.g., measuring the size of an element before the user sees it. To avoid visual flickers, however, it can block visual updates, so useEffect should be preferred when possible. What is React Fragment used for? Option A. To break the code into smaller chunks for lazy loading. Option B. To group a list of children without adding extra nodes to the DOM. Option C. To create a separate thread for heavy calculations. Option D. To prevent components from re-rendering. The correct answer is B. React components must return a single root element. Sometimes this leads to unnecessary less than div greater than tags being added to the DOM just to wrap multiple elements. Fragments. Written as less than React. Fragment greater than or less than greater than. Allow you to group multiple children without adding an extra node to the HTML structure. How do you catch JavaScript errors in your component tree? Option A. By wrapping the entire app in a try-catch block. Option B. By using error boundaries. Class components with get-derived state from error. Option C. By using the useError hook. Option D. React catches all errors automatically and displays a fallback UI. The correct answer is B. Error boundaries are React components that catch JavaScript errors anywhere in their child component tree, log those errors, and display a fallback UI instead of the component tree that crashed. Currently, error boundaries must be class components using either static get-derived state from error or component did catch. Single quote dot. How do you render a comment inside JSX? Option A. This is a comment. Option B. Option C. Asterisk this is a comment asterisk. Option D. Asterisk this is a comment asterisk. The correct answer is C. Since JSX is a syntax extension of JavaScript, standard HTML comments will not work inside the JSX return block. You must wrap a standard JavaScript block comment asterisk in curly braces, opening curly bracket, closing curly bracket, so that React treats it as a JS expression. In Redux, what is the role of an action? Option A. To directly modify the state in the store. Option B. A plain JavaScript object that describes what happened in the application. Option C. A function that renders the UI based on state. Option D. A middleware that logs errors. The correct answer is B. An action is a plain JavaScript object that must have a type property. It acts as a payload of information that sends data from your application to your store. It is the only way the store gets updated. Actions are dispatched to the reducer. What is code splitting in React? Option A. Splitting a component into multiple smaller functions. Option B. A technique to delay loading code until it is actually needed. Lazy loading. Option C. Sharing the code between the front end and back end. Option D. A way to minify JavaScript files. The correct answer is B. Code splitting allows you to split your bundle into smaller chunks which can then be loaded on demand. React, Lazy and Suspense are the primary ways to implement this. This significantly improves the initial load time of the application by only downloading the code necessary for the current page. What are the two rules of hooks? Option A. Hooks must be used in class components and always inside loops. Option B. Only call hooks at the top level and only call hooks from React functions. Option C. Only call hooks inside conditional statements and after the return statement. Option D. Hooks must be prefixed with get and must be asynchronous. The correct answer is B. React hooks rely on the order in which they are called. Rule 1. Don't call hooks inside loops, conditions, or nested functions. Top level only. Rule 2. Don't call hooks from regular JavaScript functions. Only from React function components or custom hooks. What is the difference between a functional and a class component? Option A. Functional components cannot use state. Option B. Class components are faster than functional components. Option C. Functional components use hooks for state. Class components use this, state. Option D. Functional components require a render method. The correct answer is C. Historically, class components were the only way to hold state and use lifecycle methods. Since React 16.8, functional components can use hooks, like useState and useEffect, to achieve the same functionality. Functional components are now generally preferred because they are more concise and easier to test. What does the term reconciliation refer to in React? Option A. The process of syncing the state with a database. Option B. The algorithm React uses to diff one tree with another to determine which parts need to be changed. Option C. The method of merging two different React applications. Option D. A security feature that prevents XSS attacks. The correct answer is B. Reconciliation is the process through which React updates the DOM. When a component's props or state change, React decides whether an actual DOM update is necessary by comparing the newly returned element tree with the previously rendered one. It uses a heuristic O(n) algorithm to make this comparison efficient. Where is the best place to fetch data in a functional component? Option A. Inside the component's main body. Render phase. Option B. Inside a useEffect hook. Option C. Inside the useState initial value. Option D. In the index HTML file. The correct answer is B. Data fetching is a side effect. Side effects should not be performed during the rendering phase because it can lead to inconsistent UI and performance issues. useEffect is designed exactly for this purpose, allowing you to fetch data after the component mounts. What is prop drilling? Option A. A technique to optimize prop delivery. Option B. The process of passing data through multiple levels of components that do not need it. Option C. A way to automatically generate props for components. Option D. The process of validating props using prop types. The correct answer is B. Prop drilling occurs when a piece of state needs to be used by a deeply nested component, requiring the data to be passed as props through every intermediate component. This makes the code hard to maintain. Solutions include the Context API or state management libraries like Redux or useState. What is the purpose of React Suspense? Option A. To handle errors in the application. Option B. To pause the execution of JavaScript functions. Option C. To let components wait for something, like code loading, before rendering. Option D. To prevent the user from interacting with the page. The correct answer is C. Suspense allows you to declaratively specify a loading state, like a spinner, for a part of the component tree that isn't ready to be displayed yet. It is commonly used with React, Lazy for code splitting or with data fetching libraries that support suspense. That wraps up our 30 essential React.js interview questions. How many did you get right? If you struggled with the advanced hooks or reconciliation questions, don't worry. These are complex topics that take time to master. If you found this helpful, please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe for more developer interview prep. To get the full certification and 500+ more questions, click the link in the description. For the complete set of over 500 practice questions and a certificate of completion, check the full course link in the description below.